After another dominant and historic season from the Houston Astros, it's looking like their road to the World Series ends right here, with them being only one win away from having a 5th World Series appearance in the last 7 years. And who better than their in-state rivals, the Texas Rangers, to end this run? I mean, the Texas Rangers didn't really look good versus the Houston Astros all season, but that doesn't really matter, especially when it's all about postseason baseball. Now, for the first half of this video, I really wanted to spend it going through each game of the ALCS and breaking it down. And then afterward, we can take a look at the bigger picture and what this loss means for the Houston organization going forward. But for right now, like I said, we're going to be taking a look at Game 1 of the ALCS, which I would consider the best pitching duel of the entire series, because this is one of the very few games where both pitchers played really well, and that makes sense because both teams go into Game 1 with their aces. Now, the funny thing is that if I told you at the beginning of the season that the Astros and the Rangers would be playing in the ALCS, you might believe me. But if I told you who their starting pitchers were Game 1, no shot. There's no shot you would even guess it. Why? Because both starting pitchers were acquisitions at the trade deadline. Yes, they did not start their spring off with the Astros or with the Rangers. I mean, Jordan Montgomery, he was a pickup July 30th from the St. Louis Cardinals, who, if we're being real, was not having the best time in St. Louis. Then the Rangers get their hands on him, and for one reason or another, he actually ends up becoming their ace and the best pitcher for them this entire postseason run. As for the Astros reacquiring Justin Verlander, that was probably more predictable, still, you know, a little surprising. Anyway, he goes back to Houston where he really belonged, and he kind of turns his season around. That's why they made him start at Game 1, and he played really well Game 1. Let's take a look at Justin Verlander's stats when it came to playing versus the Rangers. And the old-timer held his own versus one of the hottest teams in baseball. I mean, he went ahead and pitched 6 2/3 innings, gave up maybe 2 walks, and had 5 strikeouts. He played really well. Unfortunately for him, he did give up a single to Heim, who ended up bringing in Carter in the 2nd inning, so that was a run for the Rangers. And then in the 5th inning, he gave up a bomb to Taveras to ultimately lead to the Rangers scoring 2 runs. And, you know, the Houston Astros bats did not show up in Game 1, so he had absolutely no help as the Astros scored 0 points. And that's pretty much why the Astros lost Game 1. Not because their ace choked, but because the offense only put up 5 hits on the board and failed to capitalize when there was runners in scoring position. However, the same cannot be said for Game 2, because their starter this time got absolutely bodied. It was terrible for Framber Valdez. I mean, it was hit after hit after hit, and this was all happening in the 1st inning. They got into a 4-0 hole and were never able to climb out of it. I mean, sure, the Astros got close, but not close enough, and especially not to win the game. And going down early and big always hurts, because the vibes in the dugout are all off, and it just feels like that game is unwinnable. However, Dusty Baker and the squad have been in these positions before. Like I said, they've been to the ALCS 7 years in a row, so they know what they're doing. And he was not going to let this team just lose all hope like that. Sure, they dropped the first 2 games at home, but they were going to the Rangers, and they were going to make a statement in Game 3. And in Game 3, I want to give major props to the bats, because I feel like this was the first time they showed up all series for the Houston Astros. And sure, it was against Max Scherzer, who's having one of the worst postseason runs ever, but they showed up nonetheless. And shout out to Maldonado, because in the 2nd inning, his single drove in 2 runs that I feel like really opened up the game for the Astros. Because just like the Rangers the day before, now they got a nice solid little lead to play with, and they didn't let go of it. I mean, the ball just continued to roll from there. And I'd say there was a little bit of action offensively for the Houston Astros in the later innings that really stopped the Rangers from mounting a serious comeback, as the Astros would go on to win the game 8-5, leading to Game 4. And for the sake of time and not stretching this video out as long as I possibly could, we'll sum up Game 4 by saying it was much of the same for the Astros. They jumped out early on the starter. This time it was Andrew Heaney, who gave up 3 runs in the 1st inning. and it was all the same, basically. They ended up winning 10-3 though, so there was a little more offense than the game before, and that puts us at Game 5, where the series is now tied 2-2. And honestly, I felt like Game 5 just had the most intrigue. I mean, the series, like I said, was now tied. This was going to be the Rangers' last home game, so they really needed a win here. It felt like whoever wins Game 5 is probably winning the series with the way it's going. And that's probably why both teams decided to put their aces back onto the mound. That's right, another Justin Verlander versus Jordan Montgomery game. But this time, Justin Verlander was not going to let Jordan Montgomery outpitch him. At least, that's how things were looking until the 6th inning came around. Because with 2 runners on base, Adolis Garcia steps up to the plate versus Verlander and hits an absolute series ender. At least that's what it's feeling like. Because all of a sudden, the game goes from 2-1 to 2-4. And the Rangers have all of the momentum. All hope is pretty much looking lost for the Astros until the 9th inning. And sure, was there some drama that took place between the 6th and the 9th inning? Maybe. I mean, was Adolis Garcia hit intentionally by Brian Abreu? Maybe, but if you're asking me, I don't think so. I mean, there's no way Abreu hits him in that situation. There's just too much to lose. Why risk it? Well, that's not how the officials saw it. They ejected both players from the game, and Dusty Baker, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, this would lead to the 9th inning, where the game was on the line and in the hands of the franchise guy. That's right, I'm talking Jose Altuve. And how is he not the face you think of when someone says the Houston Astros? Anyway, after a Diaz single and a Singleton walk, Altuve steps to the plate with no outs. No outs, no worries. And apparently, it was no problem for him because he hits a home run to give the Astros a 1-run lead heading into the bottom of the 9th. Yes, he saved what I believe he saved their series at that point with that hit right there. I mean, he essentially won Game 5 for the Astros off of that hit alone, putting them 1 game closer to reaching another World Series. And of course, all they would have to do is win either Game 6 or 7, both which were going to be played at Houston. And what do they do with the series on the line? Who do they put on the mound? Framber Valdez. Now, I get he's a good pitcher, maybe even a great pitcher. But when a man's cold, he is cold. So the fact that Dusty Baker went with Framber Valdez in Game 6, mind-blowing. Now, I don't know if Dusty Baker has the memory of a goldfish, but I'm pretty sure I just watched this guy get slapped around by the exact same team a few days ago. So, whatever, put Valdez back in the game. What does he do against the Rangers his second go-around? Yeah, he gets absolutely bodied. Maybe not bodied as hard, but he does give up 3 runs in maybe 5 innings, which isn't the worst. But when you only get 2 runs on the board the entire game, you're going to lose, which is exactly what happened. They folded and dropped Game 6 9-2. It was ugly. And why was the score so ugly? Oh, that's right, because Adolis Garcia was back, and he was back for blood. I mean, the Rangers headed into the 9th with an already solid margin of victory, and then Garcia goes out and hits a grand slam to basically seal this game up. It's over. It's finished. All the momentum has shifted the Rangers' way. Now, heading into Game 7, the media begins to talk and begins to spin this narrative. All of a sudden, they begin to notice Bruce Bochy, undefeated in Game 7. Dusty Baker has not won a Game 7. I mean, the storyline just writes itself. And now the story has come full circle, because we're back at Game 7, and we already know how it ends, with one of the Astros' best pitchers all postseason basically fumbling the bag away in the first inning. And we've seen what happened when a team gives up a huge lead in the first inning. They're not able to pull out. So the Rangers end up winning the series, and this really puts the Astros in a bit of a bind, because where do they go from here? I mean, I could tell you where they're going. Their asses are heading straight to Cancun, dog, because their season is over. But they're not too sad about it. Obviously, they're disappointed, but they've had so much success. I mean, even in the interviews after the series was over, Dusty Baker talked about how in his time there, they've reached the mountaintop, they've had all of this, so they shouldn't really be too disappointed. Of course, they are, though. And the Astros are obviously going to be one of the best teams in 2024. We'll just see if that last World Series will be it for this dynasty, because eventually this dynasty has to end, right? Catch y'all later. Much love. Deuces.